Welcome everyone, this is Pineleaf Needles and you're listening to LOTRO Players News, where we take a look at the latest news in LOTRO and here at LOTRO Players. And this week we have with us Andang,
Hey everybody.
Terry Adwin,
Hi, hi.
Maven,
Hey y'all!
Carvette,
At your service.
and please welcome our special guest for this week, Iorgro Marybelly.
What's up, guys?
What's
Hey.
up? Could you please? Hey, Ira, we will begin with our little initiation ceremony, which is asking you how you got into Tolkien, Lotro, and the Lotro community.
Oh, big questions. Well, as far as Tolkien goes, my infatuation began at a very young age. It actually started with the Hobbit cartoon that was made back in the 70s. I remember as a little boy being home on a weekend. I was sick, and it came on TV, and I hadn't seen it yet, or even heard of the Hobbit before. But it was very fascinating to me. I think really what caught my attention was Bilbo and the wizard Gandalf. So we started searching for other material that Tolkien had done, and my parents actually found me a copy of The Hobbit. Um, I was like 7 or 8 years old, so it was one of the very first books that I got, and I was able to read by myself because I was little and didn't have to have parental attention to come read these fancy words for me. But yeah, that's kind of how I got infatuated with Tolkien's work, and just over the years, it's grown more and more. So
Cool.
All right, then. Then what about the game, Lotro?
the game Lotro. So I was actually making a transition out of WoW at the time. Our guild had pretty much all but died off. And I had heard about Lotro coming out and had actually been waiting for it to, kind of make the transition into its free to play. And if it wouldn't have been free to play, I don't know if I would have come over and tried it actually. So when it went free to play, I was like a little kid in a candy store. And I came over, loved the game, loved what they had done with the story, and have been hooked ever since. So
All right, then. How'd you get involved in our community then?
Well, funny story. So, multiple different ways. My kinship, and I've actually got a couple of my kinnies on right now on the MixLR chat. So, shout out to you guys. But it started with the music system in Lotro. Um, we've got a band director in our kinship, and the music in game is it's a blast to go play and get involved. And as our band got more involved, we actually got hooked up with Lillicate and started doing some concerts with her over on some of the different servers. And that kind of grew into more infatuation for me to start writing more and start writing my lore series, which I actually opened up my website, A Hobbit's Journey, about a year and a half ish ago, and that's when I actually met Braxwolf. So Brax was really the first person in the Lotro community that I got involved with, and kind of became hooked up with Lotro players at that time. So that was really how I found the Lotro community.
Cool.
All right, then. Anything else you wish to add before we go on?
No, I'm just excited to be here, guys. This is very cool.
All right. Well, thank you for coming. And so let's go into our game news now. And the big news is that the game servers will be down from 3 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Monday, May 18th, which is quite a long downtime. And Terry, what's the cause of all this downtime?
Well, it's for server maintenance, and there was some speculation on Twitter and other social media about why exactly it was such a long downtime. And there was a tweet that it was global turbine maintenance because it's not just Lotro; it's actually DDO. It's all the turbine servers. and it's work being done to all franchises related to the planned upcoming data center move. So it's related to the upcoming server changes that we still haven't gotten any news about.
Maybe it'll help them to decide exactly what they're doing.
My
Yeah,
guess is they're
just
doing a major backup and also patching into it a transfer system to transfer to another server.
yeah, and they may
Oh,
some
Or
stuff too. It's
or when the game servers come back on, Mordor will be in the game.
I think that's
Or at least
unlikely.
Minas Morgul.
Or at least
Minas
Minas Morgul. Well, I mean, with
Yeah.
that long of a downtime, you'd expect, they'd have enough time to build Mordor in that time, right?
well, yeah, the Great Volcano.
Surprise!
Well, we've been getting hints of that volcano during the last few months with all that ash that's been spewing up into our sky.
Yeah, that's right.
yeah.
Our next item is that Corey Olson, the Tolkien professor, joins the LOTRO stream team. And this looks like a press release that I'm reading here. And Trish, exactly who wrote this press release?
I did. It's not a press release.
Well,
I wrote
it
that
sounds.
press
The
release.
reason why I thought it was a press release is because I noticed that it was duplicated exactly by a message from Freelorn on the.
That's because Freelorn asked me to write something.
All
So
right.
I killed two birds with one stone.
Okay.
Efficiency.
It's like if you miss it on the LOTRO, if you miss it on LOTRO's website, it's on the LOTRO players website. Yeah. So I wrote it. I sent it off to Freelorn, and it was to announce basically his joining the LOTRO stream team, which was something that was discussed ages ago, but it's taken a while, to get to the point where we could do it. And so I'm sure Andang will be talking a little bit more about that later, in a way.
Wow, foreshadowing.
Yeah. Stay
Dun, dun,
tuned.
dun.
And ending,
This-
I heard that Corey Olson was going to do this in a rather stealthy way.
I didn't write this article. Trish, you wrote this article. Why don't you tell
But-
Pineleaf what this is about?
But I can let Carv and Terry actually talk, because both of them have
Oh.
now watched the stream.
Yeah, I've actually
It's up
watched
on-
it too, but
It's up on the. Have you? Yeah, he
Oh,
was
it's
hilarious.
it
He
is.
rolled a Hobbit burglar, and it was hilarious. But the thing is, we got actually great bang for our buck, because we also got a little tutorial in Arthurian
Yeah.
stories as well, besides Lord of the Rings. So it was like, wow, what a deal. He was really funny.
Yeah.
He was really into it. He was so hilarious.
All right.
Yeah,
I'll
it
have
reminded
to
it
get
reminded
to that.
me a
I
lot
finally
of.
found his.
Go ahead, Pineleaf.
I finally found his channel by linking from this article, so that I can actually now find his channel and now be able to listen to the stream tomorrow.
Because Pineleaf doesn't use Twitter.
Oh, Twitter? What's that?
what's Twitter?
I love the fact that he makes up the word burglarious. It's
Yes.
just awesome.
Yes.
Yes.
And
Oh.
it reminds me a lot of like my early Lotro playing, where I wasn't reading quest text because I'd gone through the area in my playthroughs, and so it was just like trying to make as much fun of the game while also talking about the lore at the same time. And he obviously knows way more about the lore than I do, so this was a really great series.
Oh, he was so funny.
yeah,
and he would
it
do
was
stuff
really
like,
good.
do not worry, John Brackenbrook. I will go kill 2 spiders for you.
Yeah.
Especially he's like, don't
Horny
worry,
hobbit
I'm a
burglar."
brave little hobbit burglar.
That's right,
I shall
I'm a
take
mighty
care of all the
burglar."
things for you.
And then when he whispers,
Don't pick me.
Shh, I'm
"We're
sneaking.
sneaking."
Yes, I'm sneaking up behind. It was very Elmer Fuddyan,
It was.
It's like I was.
This is
waiting for him to say,
great.
Shh,
That was
I'm
quiet.
hunting wabbits.
Well,
Yeah.
Spiders.
All right. Let's head to the store sales.
Okay, this week's free sample is a plus 100% mark acquisition for 90 minutes. Use coupon code MB100 one time per account. I'm guessing that's Mark Boost 100. That one actually makes sense. We also have 20% off some travel stuff. Milestone skills, hurried and returning traveler, riding traits, and the simple rally horn. Useful sale. Useful sale.
Useful
Don't
sale.
see
Yeah,
many of
I'll say.
those.
Useful.
So let's go to the site news.
You guys cannot talk. We have to move along.
Come on, Pine Leaf. Keep
It's
it going.
okay. We've only been doing this for 98 episodes, so
Oh,
But
we
that means that soon we'll have our
segue.
100th in 2 weeks, and we
You
will have
guys
a
double
special
teamed it.
celebration.
Oh my god, a double team segue. Awesome.
I
Sound like
passed the
one
ball
big
and
clap.
Pine Leaf made the slam dunk. So let's go ahead and go into the. Yes, the 100th episode will be on May the 30th, live on our Mixler page. You can also find us by going to the live tab on LOTRO Players. And it will be at 8:30 as we start the show every Saturday. And there will be plenty of guests on the show. Keep getting more and more people saying that they're going to be on. So that is exciting. And the Tolkien professor might actually be on as well. We talked about him earlier in the show, so that'd be kind of cool.
He owes you.
But
He
he'll
owes me,
be
well, again with the foreshadowing.
yes,
Um,
sneaking.
yeah. So anyway, what we really want, because I think I've only gotten one so far, is audio files and emails. Send them to podcast@lotraplayers.com with your favorite moments, other things you want to talk about, congratulating Trish for actually agreeing to do this thing. Whatever you want to do, send in an email to podcast@lotraplayers.com and we'll read it on the show. So, very exciting, only 2 weeks away. So, definitely need those emails coming in.
And to clarify, ending, when you say audio files, would it be sufficient to just say time code of episode blah 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 versus trying to snip
No,
something
no,
out?
audio files, I mean people actually sending in a recording of them, their own voice, saying what they thought was cool or, other things.
Oh,
Um, yeah,
So,
fantastic.
so to the audience, this is your opportunity to be heard on the show. If you can't make it in
exactly,
person, record a brief message and we'll play it on the show.
exactly.
I think that may have confused some people previously,
And this whole time I was thinking I'm needing to
because
look
yeah,
for
because
time
we've
code.
not really had.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Excellent.
Right?
That sounds awesome.
All right, very well. Let's go into this week's poll. And the question is, do you want a new PVMP map? And what do the audience feel?
Well, this created some interesting responses.
Ooh.
But the poll itself, there were 246 total votes, and 64% said yes, they do
Wow.
want a new PvP map. 22% said no, and 14% said other.
And did they say what other means?
Yes, I do want to read a couple things throughout. Brannick, for example, said only if Turbine lets him purchase permanent access to the moors, and presumably the new PvP map. He says he's not VIP because he prefers to purchase the content rather than rent it. So why would he ever consider renting time in the moors with the current ridiculous system? If they don't allow him to purchase, he doesn't care if they completely remove PvP from the game, since they're already telling him that he can't play there. Which I feel like a lot of players don't care if, PvP is still around because of that restriction. And so I think after more comments, which you can read on the poll, I eventually came to the conclusion that I'm kind of on the same page as Brannick. I think it would be interesting to see a new map make a change in their financial policy for PvP. Because with the new map, they would be able to charge the price of a new zone, presumably. And that would be, if they open that gate wide open, and require both Freeps and Creeps to purchase for the new map, that would create a ton of revenue for them. And maybe make the old map be like at a really reduced cost since it's been out for so long, and free for Creeps because it's been free for them from the beginning. Um, I think that they could make a lot of quick money, and it would bring a return on their investment for developing a PvP map for so long, more than just the subscription fee would, I think.
That's actually not a
So.
bad idea.
So I really, really, really hope that they make a change in policy because that would allow so many more players to enter into this new map. It would bring back a lot of vibrancy to the new map, and I think it would be good all around. And if you pay a subscription fee, then you get the new PvP map for free, just like you would have normally on Freep side. So, and Creep side for that matter. So I think this really would be the best possible way for the players and possibly them as well from a financial point of view because they'd have so many more players buying the new area and actually going there. So hopefully they will do that. But yeah, that was some of the interesting discussion created from the comments, and we'll get to another comment later in the show.
We have this week episode 105 of LOTRO Academy Quest Pack Review Eregion. We have a real nice cover here of this wonderful rainbow at night.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that Brannick actually didn't know that there were rainbows at night because he likes to go there during the day when it's all pretty. So I thought that was really funny.
So upon hearing this, he decided it had to be his cover for the
Yeah,
quest
so
pack
that's
review.
really cool. Yeah, it was definitely a good episode. I love the quest pack reviews, and I hope you guys continue, maybe even doing an expansion review for Moria or something like that. So
Right. We were originally we thought this was going to be the last one, but then halfway through the episode we remembered, oh, we forgot about Angmar.
Angry Mar.
Angry Bar.
So there will be another quest pack review before we decide what we're going to do concerning Moria. So let's go into our LOTRO video highlights. Yar, yar, me hearty trailer.
Wow. Yes,
What
finally.
is this Hobbit pirate musical?
It is claiming to be the first ever Hobbit pirate musical that they know of.
They know of.
So, I believe them. I believe it's the only one that they know of. But this was a thing that was in 2013. They actually had a musical somewhere in the game. And for it, they had like the best in-game promotional department ever, I think, because these trailers are just really funny. And there's actually two of them, so I recommend everybody check it out, especially if you want to, have pirate stuff and
They're really
enjoy
funny.
pirate stuff,
Yeah, they're very
because Tolkien is the perfect pirate first because of all the R's. Iluvatar, Maiar, Valar. All the powerful people's names end in R. It's the perfect pirate book. It really is.
Calibrimbar.
Calibrimbar. I mean,
Say an R.
it's really amazing how many of the names end in R. It
That's
really is the
fantastic.
perfect pirate book. Anyway,
Calabar.
Actually, I watched both of the trailers, and if you follow the links that show up after the trailer, the entire thing is actually on YouTube as well.
yeah.
I only had time to watch a little bit of it, but it was rather interesting to see a whole bunch of hobbits in semi-piratey costumes in the Shire, standing up on top of a rock with a whole bunch of folks sitting around on the banks of the Brandywine,
Yeah.
begin to tell this tale.
And continuing the number of pirate references in Tolkien books, there's an entire book about dwarves wanting to get back their treasure, and a dragon that's willing to protect it. Just saying. Perfect for pirates.
But it doesn't take place on the high seas, so
Well,
it's a little bit of a stretch.
there's stuff in the Silmarillion for that, so.
Get Peter Jackson involved. He'll move it. He'll move it to
Anyway.
All right, then let's go to the Family Line Part 44, Chronog the Unjust.
Carv, I
And-
remember a few weeks back you said you were going to start reading this. Have you started yet?
I started on episode 1 one day, and then I binged up to episode 20, and then I said, "Wow, I think I need to stop for the moment." So I haven't. That was like one day, so I hadn't picked it back up again, but it really was like, this is good stuff. I'm really excited, and I know when I pick it up again, I'll probably binge and get caught up with everybody else. So
It's a fantastic series.
it's a
Yeah.
really good series, and I like the way he takes a character who, without trying to give too many spoilers, is modeled after a particular class, who is kind of a farm boy but discovers he's not who he thinks he is, and so the entire series is this self journey of discovery of not only what he can do in terms of his abilities, but who he is. So I've been having a lot of fun reading it.
All right, anyone else have something to add? then let's go into Kaylee Starshine's Mighty Champion. And in this case, she is doing I guess you could say a parody of Blake's Tiger poem. Champion, champion, burning bright, beneath the dark of dawnless night, no shroud stretched from sea to sea could dim your awesome majesty. And she, of course, as usual, brings this with pictures as she goes along giving her entire poem concerning the champion. And I presume that Terry Adwin could feel for this.
It was awesome. I read it. It was awesome, except it exaggerates a little bit that people are calling for champions, because I've never heard people calling for champions in World.
Well, there on some servers it does still happen, and in particular, in the past when champions were even more overpowered, it called for them. But I think with the addition of Bjornings and the class changes, that kind of redefined things. But I think Rise of Isengard, burglars were on the top, and so it's been really, I really enjoyed this because it was a poem not only talking about champions, but also her view on champions. So I thought that was really cool to
I was
see.
sort of hoping for a cameo because I ran across her a couple of times in the last few weeks.
You're just hoping you're in the corner of one of the shots somewhere.
Nice.
Photobomb. Terry Adwin.
Finally, on the site news, we have a memorial for one of our for someone within the community. And Andy, could you please talk about this?
Yeah, so recently we received an email that somebody sent in, um, and I'm just going to read the whole thing, I think, on the show. Um, Dear Andang and friends, the woman I have dearly loved for the last 12 years suddenly passed away on May 1st, 2015. In her memory, I have posted a YouTube Valentine I created in 2011 using screenshots of us in LOTRO, which we spent countless joyous hours playing, along with music from the 1977 animated version of The Hobbit. I am no Glenn Yarbo, but I sang my best for Deborah, and I hope the video conveys our profound love for each other. You can watch it here, and I recommend everybody go to this article and check out this video. And the email continues on. As you can see, Deborah mostly played hobbits, and I played men. In all those years, talking and playing 3 hours together every night, we never once traveled the 2,000 miles separating us to meet in real life. It was impractical for numerous reasons. Yet surely many couples living together never experienced the kind of happiness we shared in our adventures and explorations. I would deeply be grateful if you could share this video with your followers. I want the world to appreciate that online loves are real and meaningful, and to know that my beloved Deborah, that she lived and breathed and mattered. I also, I also want to hear stories of the online loves of the Lotro Players podcasters. Surely you have some beautiful tales of your own. Heartfelt thanks for Lotro Players and all that you and your friends that do there. Your podcasts are like Elitharn tokens?
Hope
It'll
tokens.
Adhelion tokens. Driving back the darkness while I listen. Gratefully yours, Blake, aka Grimstalk, level 100 Guardian, and Corvette, 87 LM, of the Light of Elendil on Winfola. Elendil. Or Elendil. Um, so, obviously, our thoughts and prayers go out to all affected by the loss of Deborah. May her road go ever, ever on. This really surprised me, and as you can probably tell, really moved me. So I recommend everybody check out this and remember that, enjoy the time while we have together, because you never know what might happen. Does anybody else have any other thoughts on this?
I just want to say, I mean, this is so true with the LOTRO community. I mean, this is kind of what centers around the LOTRO community. I've never seen a community of gamers that come together in an instance like this in any other game.
Yeah.
It's very heartfelt. The people are genuine. Yeah, it's very awesome to see a community like this get behind, and you can have people that are 2,000 miles away and have a relationship like this. It's very cool.
Anyone else have something to add? Then let us go to our new player question.
Okay, that would be me. Andang shared a note that he got on YouTube from Itamar, and he said, maybe I am blind, but what a way to start. Maybe I am blind, but couldn't find an episode on role-playing in LOTRO. It is something I'm thinking about trying for the first time in my MMO career, and I've been playing MMOs for longer than I care to admit. So he basically is asking, tips. Well, he's basically saying, can we do an episode on it? But I think this was a great trick, stimulus for us to talk about role-playing. So, I'm sure new players see them. They may not even realize what a role-playing character looks like in game, but I'm sure a lot of new players and even not so new players are probably wondering what it's all about. Anybody want to step in and talk about it?
Is there anyone here who does heavy RP?
I don't do heavy RP, but I do some creepy RP.
Creepy RP?
And I'm not talking about creep side in this case. Although that
And
would
You
be
mean like
creepy.
glare wine?
No, no. Clear wine's not creepy. Um, no. I can't even believe you'd
Is
suggest
this
that,
you
Pinely.
stalking our role-playing characters? Is that
This is my stalking roleplay characters. I have a character called Murder and Bree that sole purpose is to obnoxiously obviously dart between hiding locations in Bree following somebody. And I've had more fun with that on Landerville because there's other people role playing as well. And so they'll like turn their back right when I'm made it to my like safe spot because they're watching to make sure that I get to the safe spot right before they turn around. And they'll say things like, I feel a chill in the air or something like that. And it's so amazing. And the most amazing one was when an RPer just straight up ran out of the city because because I kept following him. And
Great.
so that is a very specialized roleplay, obviously,
Yeah.
but it is a lot of fun from time to time. Um, as for getting into just normal roleplay, if you're on a roleplay server, it's much easier, obviously. I recommend just going into Bree and starting simply by listening to concerts and things like that, and then gradually making your way to doing more roleplay stuff. It can be a lot easier if you have a friend in game to do it with, as opposed to just randomly showing up, but you can also do that as well. Um, I think that if you do the right thing, it can be a lot of fun or just an interesting diversion from the rest of the game.
I
Um,
know that when I've been in the Prancing Pony, I, like I think the conversation if they're typing, if they're chatting in the chat box,
mhm.
their conversation will show up, but also the descriptions, like so and so looks at so and so with the skeptical glance or something. They'll describe that descriptive text will be in the chat box, so it's you can
Right.
kind of go watch that. The other thing is that the people who have their names in white over their heads are role play or role play friendly. And so that's how you can tell the role players from the not role players on a server like Landreval that's role playing friendly but not exclusive. And the way that you turn it on and off, it toggles, and you just in your chat box put \RP, and it'll turn it on, and then \RP will turn it off. So you could try that and see if, like Andang says, I mean, you could try it and see if somebody like engages you. But that's all I know because I haven't actually tried it myself. I've been too chicken.
Yeah, I think it's much easier if you have somebody you know that does it. I know that there are online roleplay kinships, although I don't remember the names of them off the top of my head.
Yeah.
And those would be a great asset. I'm sure they have kin. At least one of them probably has a kin website that you could search for.
This is
Um,
actually one of the few times where I would recommend somebody to check the forums because they do post that sort of thing
Yeah,
on
yeah.
that's true.
forums.
Yep.
Yeah, they do.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
and that not I wouldn't necessarily go looking for tips, but you could definitely see if there's any role-playing kinships because they'll generally be posted on the forums. And then you can maybe check around in either the regional, I wouldn't ask on World, I would stick to like the regional channel in Breetown maybe, or there's also a role-playing channel that you can try asking on, and the role players will tend to generally have that on, so you can ask questions in there.
Yeah. I think one thing that really helps with roleplay is creating a backstory for your character.
Yeah, yeah.
Either at creation
That
or,
actually
sometime later on.
fits into the lore and isn't
Right.
stupid.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't have to, but that definitely helps
It's gonna
for
help
Tolkien
if it,
players.
if you're not trying to say that you're like an extra son of Elrond or something.
Right. Right.
Um,
Seen that, so
Elrond doesn't talk about me.
If he doesn't talk about you, I'd hate to say what you're like, considering the way his other two sons are like.
one thing that I thought was really fun one time is when I walked into the first place where you meet Strider and Bree, and there was someone whose character name it had different spelling, but it was basically Aragorn's stunt double, and they were
Nice.
dressed
That's awesome.
exactly, I mean exactly like
Oh my
Aragorn was
gosh.
there. I don't know how they got like I've been looking to get exactly that costume, and
Oh my
I haven't
gosh.
looked too hard, but I don't know how they got it. So that was really amazing. They had the hair exactly right, his face perfect, and so he really was Aragorn's stunt double.
Right.
Um,
Nice.
and so that was really cool to see
Now,
that.
I say that I haven't role played. I actually haven't, but I do have two friends who are very, very dedicated role players. And so when we have quested, I've pretty much been forced to role play, and I enjoyed it. I mean, if like the person I'm talking to is into it, that's great. And in fact, we even did some post questing messaging back and forth and stayed in character. That was pretty cool. But I don't know. I mean, as a non-role player, I run into role players in the weirdest places, and I
yeah,
think, what are they doing?
yeah. Sometimes I don't want to know.
That's right.
What's really weird is that there's a certain bedroom in the Prancing Pony that I just will never enter anymore.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
Lord.
I did not need to know that. Oh
Knew it
my
was going to
gosh.
come up eventually.
What?
And the thing that I found interesting too was that, I mean, it kind of as a follow on, I suppose, to the last In Loving Memory thing. But I mean, I had no idea when I was talking to these two. It's like, oh no, their character, they've got like maybe 3 or 4 characters, and each one of them is married to somebody in game. I'm
Yeah.
like, seriously? Okay. I was just anyway. But so that's. I mean, I'm not giving any advice, but it's kind of fascinating to me, but I haven't done it
Yeah.
yet.
I haven't done any serious role playing. The two closest things I've ever done, of course, is playing in concerts,
Right.
which they tend to be role playing events near concerts at times, but I don't actually do any role playing there other than being a musician. Unless you want to say I'm role playing a musician. And the other thing is my Pine Leaf and Gondor series, which semi role play, I guess you could say. But it's more in line with the quest rather than role playing outside of the context of the quest line, which is what most people mean by role play.
Right. Your role play is like live action fanfic, right? Kind of.
Pretty
Right.
much.
Yeah.
I mean,
Kinda.
it has potential to be different than that. It could be just your in-game character's backstory that you made, or even just taking the story that Turbine made and applying that to your character as like a heroic type person, or maybe a stealthier burglar, or whatever.
Actually, it's interesting you say that because
A
I have quite
creepy
intricate
stalker.
backstories for all my characters. All my characters have backstories. All of them do. I can totally explain why my lore master elf looks like such a snotty guy. Is because he's just completely inept socially, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah, see, I'm totally the opposite. Most of my characters don't have backstories or not complicated backstories. Probably the most intricate backstory I have is for my burglar, whose backstory is that nobody knows what her history is. Because every time she tells somebody where she's from, she changes her story.
Different.
That's awesome.
She's never told somebody the same origin story twice.
Did I ever tell you where I got these scars?
So burglarious of her.
Burglarious.
Hilarious.
Nice.
Anyway, well, hopefully that helps. I don't know if that really helps Itamar that much, but it was a great conversation.
It was a
All
fun
right.
conversation. And we
Yes,
got to learn
indeed.
that
Right.
Andang's creepy.
That's right.
Right.
Well,
Very well.
Some of
like
us
I
have
said
to learn.
earlier, I think that the biggest piece of advice that we can give, since we're not role players really, is just to find a roleplay kinship or other players that do roleplay, and they will
Yeah.
definitely help you out. But I know from people who do roleplay that backstory usually really helps make it easier to get into roleplay for the character you're on.
All right. Let's go into our last week in Lotro. Ending, what were you up to?
Well, I was not on Murder and Bree this week, but I did do a PvP stream to celebrate 500,000 views, half a million views on my YouTube channel, which is just
Yay!
amazing. I'm still
Yeah,
having to pinch
exciting.
myself.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
I
That's
can't believe that when I started the channel, I never would have expected that I would have made it to this many views and stuck with it this long because I started it just as a hobby. And it still is kind of a hobby, but more like a job as far as time that I spend on it. So, um, also, this week I continued going into past areas and just touring around the landscape. I had left off last week in Bilbo's Trolls, and this week I went on to view a few places in Rohan, and also took a swift travel to Lothlorien, and realized that it rains a lot in Middle-earth. But it never rains in Lothlorien, so I went there when it was raining. So,
You went there when you said it never rains in Lothlorien,
well,
but you went
when
there
it
when it
was
was
raining
raining.
everywhere else, I went to Lothlorien, since it doesn't
Ah,
rain there.
why doesn't
Oh, it's
it
the
rain
Malorn
there?
trees. They have.
Because the ring that Galadriel had a long time ago apparently still is not water soluble. So,
I think it doesn't rain in Lothlorien because Galadriel says no.
But
she's
then the
like,
trees will
maybe
have
she's
trouble
like, this is
growing.
not a rain day today.
Oh, no, no. So the trees don't need to grow from the water that comes from the sky because the ground is wet from all the elven tears from them walking around going,
Wow.
"Praise the sorrow of my
Ah, I love that.
heart."
From the near North, our Nordic voiding.
Wow.
Good.
I was
That's
gonna say just
good.
because it's raining upstream, but
That's
whatever. That
awesome.
that
I
works
like
too.
that.
Well,
I
the
don't think there's a
problem is
well
though
to
with
go from that pine leaf. I think.
I was
um,
just thinking
Plumbing.
that the all the salt water though in their tears would not make very good water to support unless
of
Malorn trees
course,
eat
that's your
salt
comment,
water.
pine leaf. Anyway,
There again, Galadriel says it's the way she wants it, so therefore it is.
That's right.
anyway, I also spent 2 hours doing tech support this week, which just I did not expect to be spending that time. But the Tolkien
And late at
professor,
night to boot.
well, yeah, but the Tolkien professor needed my help, and I'm saying that on audio so I can sleep at night. But but yeah, I did help him get his stream going, and it ended up being a lot higher quality because when we started, it was really jerky, and when we got done, it was in a different resolution, and it was running smoothly, and it was all good. But yeah, when we changed one thing, it would mess up another thing since he's trying to stream
Oh,
off of a
jeez.
map, off of a Mac,
Act.
and so it was
Yeah.
just really a lot of trial and error because there's not like a guide you can follow online that I could find. That there were several different guides that we kind of jumped between, but a lot of them were outdated or other things, so it took a long time to get that to work. But we saw the the stream, and it stayed good the
Yeah,
whole
it
time,
paid
so
off. It did.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was
look
good.
good.
it was definitely worth the 2 hours.
Cool.
All right then. Iorgro, what did you do?
Well, I didn't get much game time in this week, but I did hit level 85 with my Roomkeeper, so very excited about that. Moving right along. And I also took my little hunter into Central Gondor and began questing and started the epic line with him. And I'm here for the first episode that I've ever been on for LOTRO Players.
Yeah, glad to have you on.
Hey.
All right, welcome. Maven.
Yes. What did I do? Well, first of all, I did a quest to the Great Barrow with Carve and Terry and one of Carve's proteges and two pickup players, which was a very interesting experience, and I'm sure Carve will be sharing about that because he has some a signal accomplishment to share. Um, I moved the kin house. My Mythgard kin moved to Thorns Hall, which is where Corey's going to be doing the Mythgard. What used to be Mythgard Mondays are now Mythgard Adventures, and so he's going to be doing it from Thorns Hall. We had discussed it, and I said that's really the best place because it's open to non-kin people, so they can get to there much easier than to any other homestead. And also I also my own house is to the same neighborhood, so I could just kind of go back and forth from chest to chest. Yay! And I also am running my It's like why go between neighborhoods? Running my lore master around the lowlands to get rep and deeds. So it's kind of a to-do list around the lowlands right now. So those are kind of the highlights for my week.
All right,
Carve,
maintenance.
Carve.
So,
What did you do?
so Mythgard Mondays changed from Mythgard Mondays to Mythgard Mondays on Tuesdays and sometimes Fridays. But
Right.
that got kind of long, so you guys changed
Right.
it to Mythgard Adventures.
Mythgard Adventures. Yeah, I did the Mythgard Monday on Tuesday or Friday for a little while, just so people would understand pretty easily that, okay, there's going to be a day change, and we're not always sure which day it's going to be. And now it's Mythgard Adventures. But I have gotten Corey to commit, and we'll see if this works, that before we close out one event, we'll announce the day of the next one. So
That's a good idea. Cool.
yeah. So I'm going to get him to commit because it mainly has to do with his schedule because he's teaching a course this semester and, he does have a family. So it's like
Important.
we don't want to
Important.
take a pair
Yes.
every night of his week. Yeah. Yeah.
And in
Anyway.
fact, the course that is on Monday, a couple of us are in.
That's right. Pineleaf and I are in, and Pineleaf is making signal contributions, I must say, as Pineleaf, which is really fun. I just love when I love when he goes, "Oh, good point, Pineleaf," and I'm sure other students are like, "Pineleaf? Who is this person, Pineleaf?"
Oh my gosh.
That's great, but it's a really fun course too. He makes poetry fun. It's not your high school poetry class, or at least the kind I had. It's definitely not that, and it's Tolkien's poetry, which is really cool.
Yeah, based on things he and you have told me, Trish, I really want to see the transcripts between like him and Pineleaf, because I think that'd be really fun.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. It's fun. Anyway, so that was my week. So Carve, what did you do this week?
Okay, well, if I can talk without choking on something. Last week after LOTRO Players News, we found ourselves over on Arkenstone, and I think because Brannick was hosting or as our guest last week, and so we started talking Academy stuff, and I was thinking, you know what? I think I have a character on Arkenstone, so let me dust him off and see what we got. And I did, actually. I had a champion over there that I had rolled for a different purpose, and then realized I'd forgotten about him. So I dusted him off, leveled him up to 21 in case some other LOTRO Academy stuff happens. And I remembered I named him Forthwith, which was a character name I was going through at the time because he's a champ. He dispatches his foes forthwith, and he needed a last name, so I went with something pseudo-German and said "und henceforth." So now I have a champion named Forthwith und henceforth. And that's a horrible pun, I know, but I enjoy it. So we ran the aforementioned Great Barrows instance, which was a lot of fun because we had myself on a character that I don't really play, which would be a burglar. And then we had Terry on a guard. Trish was on a minstrel, and none of us were really that great at those classes.
I was the healer.
And she was healing, which, So we picked up a
nice.
wandering. Yeah, it was like we picked up a wandering captain who happened to be in the area, and I was like, "Hey, you want to join our group?" And he's like, "Okay, fine." And we come to find out within a few minutes that he's a very poor English speaker because he's Mexican. And then the other kit guy we had with us wasn't on the voice chat with us, so he was kind of trying to hear what was going on while we were playing. So we ran a 5-minute of the Great Barrow, and I think we'd all done it before, but not on the particular classes, so we were trying to figure out what to do, and because our captain wasn't on the call, he was kind of playing the role of Leroy Jenkins and just running forward and grabbing things and running back, and so we get to the top of the staircase where you go down into where the barrel collar is, and I'm talking and I'm frantically typing to try to explain the simple way to do this, and the captain just charges right down into the pit, grabs everything, and I'm like, okay, here we go. And so
We
we're
had crawlers everywhere. There were hobbits flying.
Oh yeah,
There were
it was
people
it was
flying.
chaos, and so we're fighting, and people are dying, and we're fighting, and people are dying, and I look up, and I'm last burglar standing, and then everything was dead but me, and so I was like, yeah. So that happened. It was fun. I was like, last burglar standing. I just kind of threw my hands up in the air with a field goal sign, and then everybody kind of giggled. We respawned, ran back in, and went and did the rest of the dungeon. But I mean, it was a lot of fun.
It
We
was
had
fun.
some good times that night.
You know, I told you guys later, I said it's those kind of experiences that actually make the best stories. I mean, if you go through and it works and everything's great and everybody's terrific, it's like, yeah, we had a good run. But it's when stuff like this happens, it's like a story, you know? It's
Something
great.
goes
It's great.
sideways, and you're like, what just happened?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
no, I mean,
It was
those are the
fun.
ones where it's like people remember. That's true.
That's right.
And speaking of remembering things, as I was reading through the family line, I was inspired to play my lore master again, just hearing how that character developed. So I've picked up my lore master, kind of dusted him off from the mid 40s, and I've started leveling him up towards 50, where I'll probably camp him for a while. I'm going through Eregion again. This time, though, I've decided that even though I have his lore master LI, I am not going to use the level 50 item because I just don't want to look at it. Because my last lore master, I had that staff from 45 until like 55. I just don't want to look at it anymore. And so I actually got the level 50 class quest staff, which looks really cool. Because last time I didn't get it, I got the sword instead. But the level 50 Lore Master Class Quest staff has this really ornate golden top with this really cool red jewel. So I'm just running around blowing up bad guys in Arakian with that combination. Yeah, Carve is VIP because Carve loves Lotro and he will support it.
He also talks about himself in third person.
Don't diss the Carve.
Don't
He was
Yeah.
he was responding to something in the chat.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that was me responding to chat. I only talk in third person when it's funny, and so somebody giggled there, so I think it was justifiable.
All right. Terry Adwin, what did you do?
Well, I managed to break the game.
What?
Yeah, good job.
Woohoo!
I know, which is funny because I was in beta and didn't break anything in beta. I found some things that were already broken, but I didn't actually manage to break anything myself. So yeah, I was going through a quest chain in Osgiliath. There's a series of quests where you have to go around and find these rangers of Athelion that are scattered all over, and you continue that quest with them, but then they have additional quests for you to complete also. Well, I did it backwards and turned in the additional quest instead of continuing the other quest first, and the ranger zoned out on me and I wasn't able to continue the quest. So that resulted in filing a ticket and really, really fast response on the part of a GM. My first ever chat with a GM in the game. About half an hour later, we managed to get it resolved because I had to go to the fourth ranger that I hadn't found yet, and then he sent me back to the third ranger, who was the one that disappeared, who was still disappeared, and then he pushed it through for me. So that was fun.
What's wrong with a disappeared ranger? You don't have to file a ticket for that. You just clap your hands and celebrate. I don't know.
Oh my God, that's a question you
Oh.
gotta turn into. Yeah.
Guy, and I
Ooh, you don't talk about my rangers like that.
Nah, I'm just kidding.
Boy, some people, and talking about rangers.
actually the
I
rangers of
know.
Athelion are
He sounds like a hobbit, doesn't he? I mean, he's totally unappreciative of what they
the
do.
Rangers of Athelion, barring spoilers, the Rangers of Athelion do seem to be a little bit more competent than the Rangers of Estelle. So
Well, that's a plus.
Well,
That's a plus, yes.
let's face it, it's
Little
hard
bit.
not to be.
yeah, well,
That's true.
the Estelden Ranger set a really low bar. That's true.
Sam in the chat says excellent stealth ranger.
Yeah, there you go.
Excellent stealth, yeah.
Go back to that, Galrons.
And then I did Fornost with the no longer level 50 group. We actually managed to level up to 51 while we were running Fornost. That was my Burglarious Burglar. And it was
Wait a minute. I have to
Wait,
say this because Barnabras says it in the chat. He says you should have gone back to Rivendell and asked Elrond about the missing ranger.
Terry has no
Sorry.
plans in the near future to go back to Rivendell. She's perfectly happy being in Gondor. That's her homeland.
She'll get quests from Sauron before she gets them from Elrond.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. Probably.
Sauron says, "My eye is red. I need some Visine."
Okay, Sauron, if we have to do this again, why is this a
That's
daily quest?
Gonna happen.
Where's my contact lens?
Really, you lost it again, Sauron. Like, what are all with all these daily Sauron quests in Lotro? Come
I
on.
much desire to look in Lothlorien, but my vision is cloudy. Please get me awake.
Well, let me get you a telescope, Sauron. Here you go.
It was interesting running for us at a slightly higher end on level group, because it was a lot easier than when we were running it at 50. But possibly also because we had a Bjorning with us this time. So, and then first recording of Academy as co-host, and also my first field trip this week.
Ooh.
That's a thing that the Academy does on Fridays, which is mostly getting together in TeamSpeak and not necessarily doing things as a group, but chatting about what we're doing as we're doing them. Brannick actually power leveled me via some skirmishes. Terry Edwin went from level 23 to level 28 in about an hour and a half. So that was fun. It's always fun seeing a champion at work. And I was on Andang's PvMP stream earlier, which isn't in my highlights, but I want to talk about because really, Landreval, you have to go you have to go farm the newbies. Rank 0 Defiler, I think I died like 10 times before I hit rank 1.
But we killed a Beorning, and that was really satisfying.
I'm
So.
not sure that there was any we involved in that at that point. I think that's you guys.
And was that
Unless I
your
did
first
the
time
math.
healing, Terry?
That was my first time healing. Yeah, actually it was because I don't play healers unless you count, my Runekeeper that did some off healing on LOTRO Players Adventures. But
Considering that, I think you did a really good job.
yeah,
We've done dungeons where you've healed for us, Terry. We've done a couple things where your Runekeeper kept us alive.
my Runekeeper's done some healing, but Runekeeper
Yeah,
healing and Defiler healing are two totally different types of healing.
totes.
Totes.
Yeah, I was hanging out with my kids earlier today.
The Defiler healing is more like probably closer to being like mini healing, and I've never done mini healing.
It's fun.
All right.
And that was my week.
Very well. During my week, during the field trip, while Terry Adwin was dinging 5 levels, I was taking my captain and finishing up Central Gondor and starting up Eastern Gondor. And I did get a little bit of help during the epic battle there because I could never quite get Pelagear right. Then I was running quests in North Lebanon and on Laurelin, and while I was fighting some Haradrim, I got a message that a goat was threatening to attack. Okay, I'm used to this, all these things threatening to attack and then attacking me, joining the combat, and all this. But the goat did join the combat, but attacked the Haradrim instead of me. And as soon as the Haradrim was dead, the goat then reverted back and went back to whatever it was doing beforehand.
That's
That's
cool.
fantastic.
That is the first time in the game I ever knew of a mob that threatens to attack and then helps you instead of attacks you.
There were some other animals in I'm trying to remember, it was about a year or two ago, I remember some people talking about that, but I think it was a glitch and not intentional. So this might be the first time they intentionally did this after that glitch, and then they realized how to actually program it. So that's
Was there
cool.
something in regards to one of the side quests around Dol Amroth where there was like a bunch of new mobs on an island that would
Yeah,
attack?
there was that too, yeah.
Is that one
Yeah,
of the daily quests in Dol Amroth?
Yep.
Yeah,
right. And
I
that
do
is
remember
that
that
they're.
one.
I got the impression that they're routinely fighting those
Yeah, they
mobs.
don't threaten to attack like they did here, so that was
Oh,
interesting.
okay.
And that was out either in an instance or some at least sectioned off area, while this was in a regular landscape area.
But I'd
Yeah.
like to see that more and more often, particularly around Shelob's area, to see some stuff like that. That'd be kind of cool.
And on my Bjorning, I was running through the Silvertine loads and finishing up the quests up there.
Bear in a cave.
Yep, bear in a cave.
Bear in a cave.
That's what it is.
Looking for hibernation.
That's really Pinely's whole Beorning backstory. He's just role-playing, trying to find hibernation the whole time.
Trying to find hibernation. Uh, well, considering that the time in Moria is during the winter time. I guess that's fitting.
Of course, Pine Leaf.
He's gonna stock
Let's
up on some honey and take a nap.
let's go into news beyond Lotro, and we will have one story there, and the Kings of Gondor, Part 7. And Iogro, you're with us this week, so tell us about the Death to the Corsairs.
Yeah, so part seven, Death of the Corsairs. It actually picks up with King Aldemir picking up the crown and moving into the just the whole constant battle with the Corsairs and Castamir's sons really picking up the Corsairs at Umbar and the Haradrim as well. So this goes in through the Haradrim War and Aldemir getting revenge on them killing his father. So yeah, this was a fun episode to write. Talks about the House of Huron a little bit and the line of the Stewards being founded, and then it ends with Terrandor when he plants the white tree. So yeah, it was a fun episode.
All right.
Cool.
With title like Death to the Corsairs, I'm thinking more Aragorn's time when I see that title.
So they were defeated then, but ultimately they kind of came to a crumble as well back in this time. So
Yeah. Cool.
All right, then. Then let's head into our skirmish of the week. And what are the pros and cons of orcs? And we could include goblins and uruks and stuff like that, things that are of orc kind. So let us talk about our sides on there. Carvet, what are you taking on this time around?
Well, I like how when Tolkien set up villains, in your classic, we need antagonists for our story. The elements of quote evil, as we shall call it, um, are definitely decidedly cast as bad guys. Not in the sense that they're normal people who have strayed from the path of goodness. They're legitimately creatures that have been so tainted by evil or purposely created or bred by evil. They're just bad. And you can look at them and know it's not that this guy's wearing black and then the heroic cowboy's wearing white, to use the old Western trope. These are creatures of evil. So you've got the orcs and the goblins and the uruks, and whether they started off as something that was good that Melkor or whoever tainted and made them bad, or they were something that just kind of came out of the pits of whatever. There's always this implication that the orcs and all of the sub um, regionalized versions of them are bad. You get Saruman's got orcs that have been infused with men elements in some point so they can travel in the daytime. You've got various types of orcs. I remember reading in the Return of the King how as Sam and Frodo are sneaking through Mordor, they're basically running into these big, brutish thug guy orcs and these skinny, smelling tracker type orcs. And you kind of see that in the various renditions where, the smaller guys might be called goblins and the bigger guys might be called orcs per se, but they're all kind of like the same breed. They're just different versions of them. Like, I may look different than somebody who was raised in Africa or somebody who was in China or whatever. There's all these different kind of versions of orcs, but they're still called orcs per se, not like the humongous differences between goblins and uruks and whatnot. But I mean, I think it's really cool how Tolkien definitely set apart the villains as something other than people who would make bad choices. Even though there are those characters in the game, there is this horrible evil force out there.
Yeah, I really liked actually the origin of orcs. I mean, people kept asking Tolkien that, and I think he changed his mind over the years, as he did with several things in his Legendarium. But I think the story that Christopher chose to put into the published Silmarillion, I really caught my imagination, which was that when the elves first awakened at Cuiviénen and sort of wandering around these first children of Iluvatar kind of thing, um, some would start to disappear, and the thought, or I don't know, the saying or whatever was that Morgoth was stealing unaware elves, that weren't like didn't have safety on their minds, and he was distorting them to become orcs because Morgoth couldn't create life on his own. He had to distort existing life, and even though Tolkien kind of veered away from that, that's kind of what I still carry with me when I read the books,
Yeah.
because to me that, I don't know, it was just a really compelling kind of, like you were saying, really evil. I mean, that whole thought of, they were once elves, and this is what's become of them, and these are the children of those original distorted creatures. I mean, I think it just adds a little bit more to the book. He doesn't really talk about it in Lord of the Rings, but I really like that.
Yeah, but he does talk about trolls likely being distorted ents in the Lord of the Rings.
That's right, he
Yeah.
does. Yes, he does. Which is interesting. I mean, so he has that same idea still, which is cool.
Which, a kind of side note here, but that does make Nurzum seem a little bit more realistic when you think about the fact that
That's true.
ints can be turned into trolls. Why not have something like Nurzum come around?
Right.
Yeah, it's true.
It
That was
sounds like something
Saruman's
that
germ version of doing it.
is Saruman trying to be Melkor.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that's true. Yeah.
Which in many respects, he kind of does that with the orcs too, so.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, he's very much into tinkering with life and distorting it for his own purposes.
Mm-hmm. And also just having a lack of care for life.
Now, the
Right.
question is, does anyone feel that with orcs the way they are, that it's too one-dimensional of an enemy to have?
Well, I mean, I can kind of see it because, on the other hand, I don't feel that Tolkien, I guess the only way to say it is fleshed them out, a lot. I mean, even Corey has mentioned that when he's talked about like the two towers when they've taken they're taking the hobbits to Isengard, and also the two orcs in the Cirith Ungol, when they're arguing and
Mm.
stuff. You get a little bit of an insight into something other than just a drone-like, creature. They have their own ambitions and they want to set up for themselves, and all this stuff. But other than that, he doesn't really give them any real depth. And I think, maybe, I don't know, maybe part of that is that you're supposed to just dislike them, and you don't want to. He doesn't want to have you even come close to empathizing in any way with them. So maybe
Mhm.
there was purpose behind that. I don't know.
Well, you do have a point there because there are some villains you do want to empathize with,
Right.
but yeah, this is very much a type of villain you don't want the readers to empathize
Right.
with.
Right, and I think
Right.
part of that came from, at least my understanding is, all of the readers writing in about the fact that they're really elves and can they actually be redeemed somehow. And at first Tolkien's response is kind of like, no, they can't be redeemed, but as he thought more and more about it, it seems like he wanted to move away from the idea of elves being turned into
Yeah, I
orcs.
think that was
Yeah.
it, because of course being a very devout Christian himself, and I mean it was, yeah, it was
Yeah.
like, do they have souls? Do they go to Mandos when they die? It became a really kind of troublesome topic for him, I think, which is why he moved away from it.
But Christopher then brought it back up in the Silmarillion.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's true.
I
That's true.
I do like the idea of better, well maybe not better, but I do like, the idea of them being elves twisted, but then at their end of the life, at the same time it's like, well, but they should also be redeemable. So it's like it's a interesting quandary.
Well,
Anyway.
that was my thought, because if you actually go that direction, then what we're seeing in the Lord of the Rings are the children of the children of the children kind of thing, and should they be held accountable? I mean, should they, they had no choice. It's like their
Right.
progenitor was distorted. So it kind of opens up an interesting line of thought. But I think, yes, I can imagine how he thought he just was like, oh, this is getting to be way too complex,
Yeah.
and he couldn't like spiritually get it to match. I mean, I also thought of the thing of, when they die, maybe there is kind of a Mandos-like thing. I don't know. Anyway, we're kind of getting off topic, I guess. But
All right.
anyway, I just think it's a really interesting question as far as the books
Yeah.
go.
Well, I brought that up because no one technically had the con, but I thought that could be an interesting thing to talk on that side.
Yeah,
So
I'm glad you did. See, you're such a good
Good job,
MC.
finally.
I like
Yeah.
it. Good luck.
So
job.
let's go into the movies.
Yes.
Ending.
Well, the main thing that I like about the films is regarding orcs is that they actually were able to separate them into different clear, distinct types, so that you could visually tell, okay, those are clearly Uruks from Isengard, and those are clearly orcs or goblins from Moria, and those are clearly Mordor orcs. And I actually really like that visual distinction because it makes it, first of all, be more interesting because the Uruks are like really crazy looking, and then you have, the Mordor orcs, which are, all organized and very serious. So I really like the way that they were able to actually diversify them and make them be clearly separate things. I think that was pretty cool.
But I do wonder concerning the scene where the main orc from Isengard, when he is created, so to speak. And what is that?
Well, you gotta sculpt Uruks out of mud, pine leaf.
Yeah, you got to grow them out of pods.
That's probably my
I mean,
con.
everybody knows that, right? Come
Come
on.
on. Didn't
That's,
you read those Lost Tales?
I
Come on
mean,
now.
technically, we don't know the process of how the heck Saruman transforms stuff, and given that, in the Bible, it says that, man was created from dirt. Maybe Saruman knows some type of mystical thing that we don't. I don't know.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that. That's pretty interesting.
Well, it's interesting that they kind of played on different versions of the lore in various different game adaptations. Like it's called War of the Ring. It's one of the earlier real-time strategy games where there's a mission where you have to play as some of Saruman's lackeys to create the Uruk-hai. And you basically take orcs and you rob barrows and you get the spirits of the barrow wights and then you put them in a ring and then they form this little pod thing when the barrow wight spirit with the man element fuses with the orc spirit to create your Uruk characters. So it's kind of an interesting spin
Wow.
on that whole concept of how did Saruman create these guys? Did he take orcs and infuse wicked men spirits from the barrows into them? I don't know, but it's just kind of weird.
All right.
Very
With
interesting.
that, let's go to Maven for her pros for the games.
Yeah, I was going to say, if we get too much farther down there, I go into thoughts I really don't want to have about how you mix men and orcs.
Real quick, do we have any cons for orcs in the films other than just the way that they're made?
Um, the goblin cockroaches in Moria.
Oh yes, the goblin roaches.
I like how again, like in the films, they really did a good job of trying to create these terrifying critters. But you look at them and you're like, okay, some guy had a lot of fun with the art direction here because there's a lot of diversity. And one of the things that Jackson said when he was in there trying to, work with his art people to create the bad guys, so to speak, is he kept saying no witchy noses. He wanted to take the idea of the pointy nosed goblin with the pointy ears and throw it out the window. So you get a lot more of these kind of skeletal looking orcs, especially when you're talking about the Mordor orcs, the so-called Uber shock troops that are attacking across the fields of Pelennor. Those guys are the ones that have more skull-like faces, and I don't know. It's kind of like interesting, but yeah. So you can only do what you can with the visual medium.
I mean, I could talk about the orcs in The Hobbit. I mean, I just thought, what's his name, Azog, just looked too artificial. I just don't think they did a good job with them.
Well,
But
that whole
I mean,
thing was made up anyway.
that's right. That's right. He wasn't even supposed to be there.
Yeah.
But that gets more into technicalities of creating the
Having
orcs.
recently finished the Hobbit book again, I was like, what?
Honestly, I look
Chapters
at. Go ahead, Euro. Go.
Oh no! You guys are talking about Azog and the whole made-up story, and I think the only other con that I can say, as long as for the Urix and stuff, is I think just some of the made-up lore that kind of Jackson went with. So
Every time I see Azog, I think of this
Yeah.
big kind of schoolyard bully with this dumb face, like, hey, you get off that swing. I want to swing there. Like, hey.
Yeah,
Now
and
let's
actually, I
go to.
just thought it. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You go. You go.
I
I
said
was just
now
thinking
let's go
Manu
to.
Bennett actually did. Didn't Manu Bennett did Azog, and he did the guy who was the Uruk that we saw getting born in the mud. Same
He
actor.
might have.
Anyway,
Yeah, he might
Yeah.
have.
yeah.
But I just imagine him being like, "Let me swim under the ice."
All right. So I'm sorry, Pine Leaf. I screwed up your segue, and I know I'm next, but I'll let you. Please go ahead
Very well. Let's go. Let's go to Maven on the pros for the games.
for the
And what do you
games.
like about the orcs in the game?
Well, mine is an extension of what Endang said about the films. I mean, I think, I mean, I could do my own visualization however I chose to in the books. Jackson did a good job in the films, as Endang said, and I think the games actually took it to a whole nother level of diversification and detail. I mean, to tell you the honest truth, I mean, I keep my resolution on the game down low enough because I've got a rural internet, and so it's like, I want to actually be able to play without it becoming like so lagged that it's horrible. So I don't get a lot of detail, but there have been some times that I've ended up unintentionally being really up close and personal with an orc or a goblin or something, and it's like, whoa, dude. I mean, they really have like drawn them very well. I mean, they
Yeah.
are awesome characters and like you say, diversify. Like we were talking about defilers earlier. I mean, I played for a while before I knew defilers were the healers of the bad guys, but it's kind of interesting that they did that, and it's I don't know, it's just I could do without the Glubsnagas. I will say that, but
Anyone could do without the gloves
yeah,
nagas.
yeah, I think we could probably come to consensus on that one. But it's just basically taking what Andang said, and to me the game just took it to another level. Jackson could have started, and then the game did an even better job of it. So I really appreciate that. It makes it, I don't know, it makes it better that, right, than fighting basically one sort of same looking mob all the time.
Right.
So it's pretty cool. I
And I'm
like it.
glad you said it that way, Trish, because I was going to point out that, Jackson did it first, and so that's why I wanted to make sure to focus on, Jackson's stuff, because Lotro does do it better, in my opinion, too.
Right.
Part of that's just because of the sheer amount of orcs that they have to portray. I mean, even just in Moria alone, there's probably like 20 different types of orcs minimum. Because you have everything from like
Yeah, that's
goblins
right.
to like these fire orcs to like the shadow ones to like the poisoned ones to the like there's all these different kinds. And what I really like in the new area is that the orcs from Minas Morgul actually have red beady eyes, and it's the creepiest looking thing ever. Same with the
Ooh,
trolls, same with
Mm-hmm.
the all the creatures that come from
wow.
there have these really bright red beady eyes, and it's the creepiest thing and I really, really like it.
That's cool.
That
Yeah,
is
I
cool.
agree. Yeah. So Terry, cons.
Well, on the other hand, I kind of wish we had a little bit more diversity with the orcs because you can kind of tell from a distance, that tall stringy orc over there, well, that's a pew pew. And this
Oh
orc
yeah.
over here waving a staff hunched over is a defiler. And this big beefy orc is an uruk-hai and he's going to stun the crap out of you.
Terry, the orc captains are very, very efficient at looking at how strong an orc is and giving him the perfect weapon for the job. They're just extremely efficient, that's all.
I have been in zones though where they seem to have the captains seem to have had a different idea of which were the best weapons for it. I'll just go to say that.
And particularly in certain skirmishes, I've noticed this, and probably on the landscape too. There's certain Uruks that are like really, really like heavy duty guys, and they have bows and arrows and stuff like that. So it does change up a bit, but for the most part, you're right, Terry. It is kind of weird that they do it that
And that the heavy ones seem to like skipping quite a bit.
Yeah,
way.
I haven't figured that out.
They're just really
And you
happy.
sometimes find orcs in improbable locations because the books will mention that orcs avoided sunlight, so you'll see orcs in like across the plains with no dawnless day covering up the sunlight, and it's just very strange. They seem to have adopted the Peter Jackson mentality of just go wherever.
Well, there's some trolls that seem to have taken that mentality also.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't get the trolls either.
But one thing Lotro did do that's really fun is that when you fear an orc, watching them run away with their arms flailing above their head
Look like an
is some
orangutan.
high comic relief, man.
There's a really funny video on YouTube that I'm still debating about if I'm going to actually share. Um, but it has orcs that basically it's if the orcs were in a psychiatrist place, and it talks about how they have all these issues because they're being attacked by these guys that just barge in, and then they have to respawn and do it all over again for the next guy that barges in, and they're just minding their own business, and it's all fine. And then it shows in their own animated engine because they redid it because they actually animated like this whole psychiatrist room and all this stuff. It shows in their own animated engine that it just the minstrel like uh, does the fear thing, and then they go like all crazy armed, and the minstrel's just sitting there playing their normal song, and then uh, and then it just like one shots them once it finishes the song, and it's the funniest thing ever because it just like waits for them to like flail around the room and just
That
passively
that
do
was
that.
actually sort of me earlier today in the Moors, because I had like 3 or 4 lore masters taking turns stunning me. They didn't
Yeah.
actually attack me other than that. They were just like stunning me and hopping around and laughing at me because I'm trying to run away on my defiler. It was really sad.
Anybody else have anything to add on this?
I think we're good, Pine Leaf.
Very well. We currently have 9 supporters on Patreon. If you would like to join this illustrious fellowship of players and help support Lotro players, simply go to the donations page where you can support the Players Alliance on Patreon. And apparently this is updating quickly because now we have 10 supporters on Patreon.
Woohoo! Yay!
This just in! Yay!
Or very belatedly updated because they
All
forgot to
right.
change the number. But yeah,
There you will find rewards including a mention on the podcast of your choice or even guest on an episode of Lotro Players News. And how far are we from the next Lotro goal?
well, Pineleaf, we did reach our previous goal, which was a DDO 5,000 turbine point code giveaway, which has actually broken comment records for the
Oh,
Players
good
Alliance.
grief.
Within probably around 30 hours, it had more comments than our Helm's Deep giveaway did on Lotro Players, and that
Wow.
was that was actually right when the expansion went on for purchase. So the fact that we got more comments on the DDO thing than that is just mind-boggling. So now our next goal is a Lotro 5,000 turbine point code giveaway, and we can't let DDO win. So we got to get this giveaway and get more comments in 30 hours than the DDO one had. So that's our new goal. We're $18 away from that giveaway. So, support us on Patreon and maybe we'll beat DDO.
But you're not going to beat DDO on percentage of total posts at the site, which is because it's right now, last time I checked, 1/3 of all the posts at the DDO site have been to that
That is
post.
probably true. Yeah, yeah, especially given the number of giveaways we've had on Lotro players over the years.
Right. Reviews. We did not have any iTunes reviews, but we would love to have one for you. But we do have a featured comment from Sue, who left a comment on this week's poll. Yes, I don't even play PvMP, but keeping all factions happy in Lotro is a great idea. And maybe one day I will be joining the fight as well.
See, that
We
surprises me because Sue was kind of not opposed to PvP, but he's never been really into it. So, but I do agree with him. I think that just to they haven't focused on PvP for so long, and they've promised that map so many times that at this point, if they don't release it, this is kind of their last chance, aside from maybe somewhere in Mordor. Um, so I really hope that they're actually going to do it this time.
Well, this is actually one place one location on the map where we are going to that it makes sense to have a PvP map.
Right, yeah, there
There's
aren't
many other
too many.
places. There aren't too many. There might be a place in Moria that would have been.
Yeah. And Angmar, considering that
Yeah,
the
okay.
Lotro
Angmar is
story.
also.
Considering the Lotro story.
Well, it's Angmar. I think it'd be harder to believe that there'd be enough Freeps there in
Yeah.
order to do it. Osgiliath, at least you've got two warring factions facing each other across a river.
Yep. Yeah, it's perfect.
We do have an email from Glambold who writes, "This is not documented in the patch notes for Update 16, but you can now only get black dye from a gilded scholar. It was a critical chance before on rust dyes."
That's really annoying news to me because I use black dyes a lot. So what's the deal
Yeah.
with that? Why would they do that?
Well, apparently Sauron is getting the corner on the market. Clearly. He
Yeah, I
stole
mean,
all the
when I
black
read that, it's like,
horses,
oh,
now
great. So
he's...
the auction price on this is now going to go, it's
That's
going
gonna
to go high
skyrocket.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so annoyed. I mean, I'm going to have to get my scholar gilded, which is also annoying.
I hear that.
They're just trying
Right.
to
Maybe I have
drive
to
business
maybe I have to go with
from
another
Alia.
signature
You know how
color,
it
I
is.
guess.
Alia's giving the TB dev or Turbine devs kickbacks from her store.
Yeah, I bet. I don't trust that little hobbit. I'll tell you.
Anyway, managed to sell some already this week. Glambold of Rittermark. And if you'd like to be like Glambold, you could email us at podcast@lotroplayers.com. You could also follow us at Twitter, the Players Alliance at Players Ally, Lotro Players at Lotro Players, Andang at PVMP_Andang, Erahart at Erahart,
Sure.
Braxwolf at Braxwolf, Carvet at Carvet LP, Lily Kate at Lily Kate, Buggins, Maven at Tolkien Maven, Pineleaf at Pineleaf Needles, and Terry Adwin at Terry Adwin. And you could follow our special guest, Iorgo, at Iorgo Marybelly.
Close enough.
Close
It's
enough.
close
Players
enough.
Alliance goes live, which shows 3 times a week on Mondays at 8:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. We have DDO Players News on Thursdays at 6:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. We have Guild Wars Players News. And on Saturdays at 8:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, we have LOTRO Players News. And you can join us for our live shows at lotroplayers.com/live. Thank you, everyone, for listening. This is Pineleaf Needles reminding you to skirmish responsibly.